I went up that dumb jungle gym twice.
Dumb jungle
only
gym.
to get up there and Daisy not be there.
Then you're just like a grown man.
Yeah,
at
I'm
the
just a
top of the
grown
jungle
man
gym.
stepping over children.
Hello, children.
Little girl looking at me like,
Excuse me.
Yeah.
she was just somewhere else. I'm like,
Yeah.
how did you get somewhere else? There's like 2 exits and they're right side by side. Where did you get out?
We are ready when you are.
Oh, are you? Well, welcome to Signs of Life, the show where we find hope in the headlines. My name is Chase. I'm one of your hosts. I'm joined by Josiah and Montana. And today we're talking about thoughts and prayers and compassion.
Yes, which are two very different things.
Things.
Or they could be the same thing.
Or they could not be the same thing.
We'll see. We'll talk about it. I want to start us off today with a really cool story. It's local to us here in the North Texas area. And you may have heard of him. You may have seen him. I personally know him. Not really, I wish. But this guy's called the Denton Spider-Man. And really cool story. Him and his wife, they basically dress up as Spider-Man and, I don't know, Spider-Woman. I don't really know what her character name is. But he's wrapped his truck. He goes around to do kids' birthdays, and what's really cool is he doesn't charge for this. Like, people will just donate at whatever money they can or gifts, and he'll show up and, like, you know, do a little little birthday celebration with your kiddos. And so he actually did a birthday for one of our friends' kids. It was really cool. But I'm bringing him up today because what he's been doing these past couple weeks is gathering toys from here in North Texas, different churches, different organizations, individuals, and he's going to do this big superhero celebration for Uvalde, where the school shooting happened. And it really brought up this idea of, like, what do we do when a crisis happens? We've talked about this kind of personally. How do we reflect? How do we manage our emotions? How do we help in ourselves? But then the question is, and that's what we're talking about today, is like, what does it look like to step beyond ourselves and actually help a problem that we see? And I love this story because obviously kids and superheroes is really cool, but like, he's here in North Texas. He's hours away from where this incident happened. But if you watch this interview with him, like, he's taking action and he's deciding, hey, I can't do all of these things, but here's what I can do. Here's what I'm good at. Here's something I'm already doing that I can use and to leverage to help in this area. And
well, that's what, to me, the encouraging part of this story is seeing somebody not get overwhelmed by the large problems that we face, you know, but they're just doing whatever they can in the moment. And I don't know about you guys, but a lot of times I get so caught up in, you know, the gun debate or the government systems or the way our schools are being treated. And I get so caught up in the larger problems of our country and systems that we have that it's like, I don't take the time to go, okay, what can I just do in this moment to help? You know?
And I think there's like so many parts of that too. There's like the emotional piece that we get caught up in of our personal beliefs and what we feel, like not just think, but what we feel is the right thing. Right. And then on the flip side of that, it's like this knowledge. Like, we get all the knowledge. Someone shares this article, we read this thing, we know the research behind this, and then we're overwhelmed with all this knowledge of the problem that it stuns us and paralyzes us. And then from there, you know, and I think you even said this this past weekend in your message, like, from there, like, well, we just to say, oh, well, I can go vote or I can do this and that's it.
Right.
And it's like, you can do that, and there's a possibility of doing more, which is really what I think compassion is. Yeah. Like, that's the definition of taking action beyond just, you know, seeing a problem and feeling bad about that thing, having sympathy, like really going beyond and doing something about it.
Well, because the truth is, compassion is what makes the biggest difference in people's lives. I mean, when you are personally experiencing a crisis, it's like, thank you for praying for me. Thank you for having good thoughts. Thank you for having sympathy or empathy. But at the end of the day, the biggest impact that's going to be made on my life is when somebody has compassion on me. Yeah. and
Can you
and really
define
helps me.
the difference between sympathy, empathy?
Yeah, I mean, and I'm not an expert in it, but just some of the research I've done is you kind of have these 4 stages of emotions. You have apathy, which of course is I just don't care, right? And then you have sympathy, which is synthetic empathy. It's I see that you're hurting, and I recognize that you're hurting, but I don't really know what that's like. Like you're experiencing something that I've never experienced before. So the best that I can do is recognize that you're in pain. Then you have empathy, and empathy is where you really can put yourself in that person's shoes. It's where maybe you've been through the same situation, and you know exactly what it feels like to lose a loved one or to go through a crisis. And so all of those up until empathy are really just emotions that we feel. And they're good things to feel other than apathy for the most part. You know, sympathy and empathy are good things to feel towards people. But if you take it a step further, what I see is that compassion is empathy that drives you to help. Compassion is a strong enough empathy that motivates you to do something. So I like to say that compassion is empathy plus action.
That's good.
And you know, if you look at the life of Jesus, it's like that's really what we're called to do. It's not just to have the heart and mind of Christ, but to also be the hands and feet of Christ. And that's what James talks about in his book, not just being hearers of the words, but doers of the words. We are called to take action. We're called to do something about this suffering around us. And so, you know, that's what compassion is to me. And I think that this story of the Denton Spider-Man is such a great example of, again, not getting wrapped up in the bigger problem, but just doing what you can to help. You know, you have empathy and you take action.
That's good. That's good. Yeah, I think about, you know, we're talking about this right now, and the reality of the world we live in, things are so much more visible, news gets out so much quicker, and so there are a lot more things for us to respond to and react to and have feelings about, and learning what compassion is, I think obviously is important because it is the invitation that we have to take action and to be a part. The question then, I think, is as you think about this, like this was even now a couple weeks ago, and there's these lingering effects and all these things happening from it, but then there's these other situations. And then beyond the newsworthy ones, like there's our friends, you know, there's family, there's ourselves who are walking through difficult things, who are having obstacles and things that we're coming up against. And so I think something that happens is that kind of back to, you know, step one, the apathy piece is like we run out of emotional capacity to care. And so what we do is we kind of, I think, just say, oh, well, I'll pray about it or thinking about you, and that's it. And to me, like, I do believe there's power in prayer. Like, I've personally experienced that. But I believe, like you said, like, we can pray about it and we can act on it, too. And living both of those.
You brought up a good point about social media. I think social media has had such a negative impact on our ability to have compassion because when you're scrolling through an Instagram feed, for all intents and purposes, you are seeing everything at the same level. And so you're scrolling through and you're reading about a beheading that happened to a Christian in the Middle East. And then the very next news feed is about your friend who had great guacamole at Chewy's. And literally your brain is looking at a beheading that happened in the Middle East and this great guacamole at a Mexican restaurant on the same playing field. And I don't know if I don't know if there's science behind this or not, but I don't know if we're capable of, when we live in that world, of really seeing the difference between this crisis and this trend.
Yeah, that's
you
interesting.
know? And
the very fact that the button then of like, I want to like my friend's post, like I like that. Oh, but also I want to support this news crisis. I'm gonna like that. Like I like the beheading. Like that's just weird language, and I don't have any science behind it, but it's kind of weird to think about it. Like when you say it like that, you're absolutely right. They're side by side,
it's
and
a 2D,
like them both.
Yeah, it's a 2D intake of information that is, I mean, just happening at this rapid rate, and we're like just trying to it's like you don't have time to process all of this that's going on. So of course we've reached a place in our lives and our society and culture where we're just numb to all of this stuff, which, here's the deal, man. It's like, we're not going to stop the beast of social media, nor should we. And your social media director, it's like there's a lot of great things that come from social media. We're on social media now. But it does bring to light just the intentionality it takes from us to make sure that we're really connecting into that compassionate part of our brain.
Yeah, I saw this one thing that said empathy is an impulse. Like it's something that maybe someone's born with more empathy or less empathy, but it's like a natural response that we have, and compassion is deliberate.
Yes.
So it's easy to feel empathy at a certain level, and even scrolling on social media, you can still feel empathy seeing something, but it's like if it stops there, it will turn into apathy.
Yeah.
Like empathy is not enough. Like, and you can become like discouraged, and that drive that you feel that empathy might cause can fizzle out if action. It's like you got to step on it, and like you got to do something right away, or else it's easy to there's another thing to be worried about, or have this over here. So
it's not it's not natural for us to probably have compassion. If it's more natural for others than some people, it's because they've practiced that, being compassionate. I saw a phrase the other day that said, I'm gonna work on loving God and loving people, and when I get that right, then I'll move on to some other things. And when I thought about that in the lens of compassion, I thought about all of the different things that we see and all of the different problems that we witness that deserve compassion. And you just mentioned, you got the Uvalde shooting, and then you have something happening in Ukraine, and then you have your friends and family, and then you have your own personal crisis. And how do we respond to that? And so that phrase made me think, what if you just started having compassion with the people that are right in front of you? Like, just start there, you know? And then once you get that right, then move on to some other things. And I think there's cases where, like the Denton Spider-Man, who has a heart to go down to Uvalde. But I think for the average person, it's like, don't get overwhelmed with the thought of, what should I have compassion on? Right. It's like, okay, I'm going to start with Montana. I'm going to start with Chase. That's who I'm going to have compassion on
Reach
today.
your arms out. Who can you hit?
These are the people I work with today. I'm going to have compassion on you guys.
Yeah.
And then once I get that right, then I'm going to start seeing what else is out there to have compassion. But we get paralyzed by everything, so we don't do anything.
Yeah. And when you say that, like, that is the picture, I think, of the life of Jesus, that he was in his normal routine, in his regular, travels and his regular interactions, and we just see it over and over. Like, there was a need that would happen, and he would see, and he would look, and he would feel compassion, and then he would go, and he would pray, and he would heal, and he would talk, and interact, and love on someone, and but it was, like you said, it was in the normal rhythm of his life.
Yeah. Everything I read, I tried to do as much study as I could. I never found an instance, and I could be wrong here, so prove me wrong if you can, but I never found an instance where he went out of his way to have compassion. It was always like he was going into town to have lunch, and he came across two blind men, you know? And sometimes his compassion was teaching. So like one time he got off a boat, and there was a bunch of people there, and it said that he had compassion on them because they seemed lost. And so he taught them about the ways of the kingdom. That was his act of compassion. Yeah. Sometimes his compassion was feeding them. It said that he had compassion on people that were hungry. So he multiplied the bread and fishes. Sometimes his compassion was doing a miracle over somebody. And so it wasn't always these big things. It was like compassion was whatever those people needed in that moment, in his daily routine, he stepped up and fulfilled that need. Yeah, that's good. And I just think that's so powerful.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, I mean, I've never thought about this story in a theme of compassion, but like, we talk about Zacchaeus, the wee little man in the tree, and kind of this tax collector, all this money, and he says, hey, come down, we're going to your house, you're going to host me, blah, blah, blah. And everyone was like, oh, that's terrible. But like going to his house, and what we know comes from that interaction, that dinner, is that it says that Zacchaeus' life was changed, that he sold a bunch of his stuff and gave his money to the poor, which he never would have done. But like this idea that it was just dinner for Jesus. It was just dinner. Like he said, hey, come and host me and some of my friends for dinner. I want to be with you. Like the amount of compassion that Jesus showed in that moment, the amount of love, maybe he taught, maybe he didn't, we don't know, but just the showing up was what changed Zacchaeus' life, where he then turned, like you said, and said, well, what can I do? I can sell a bunch of stuff and give my money to the people right around me. And it's like I love what you just said. Sometimes compassion is just saying yes to going to coffee with someone.
Exactly.
It could be saying yes to buying someone coffee.
Right.
And that, like, that truly is okay. Like, thoughts and prayers gets this bad rep, and it probably should, but like buying a coffee, buying a meal, calling someone, that's simple, but it's personal. Yeah. And I think compassion's personal. Yeah. Like, yes, pray for me, thank you, but like, text me what your prayer is. Yeah. Like, call me and pray with me. Don't just pray for me, pray with me. Like, I want to hear your voice, because that does something to me. It reminds me, okay, I'm not in this alone. Like, I've got people who've got my back. And so I love that thought. Like, compassion's personal. And when you even think about that, like, what does that look like as you, and I don't, we don't like to brag on ourselves, but like, what's unique ways that you've been able to be compassionate for people?
Dude, I mean, it was like, I moved into a new house in August. This young couple moved across the street a few months ago, and it's a new neighborhood, so we're really like the only ones on the street for a while. And they just had their first baby a few weeks ago. I don't even know the couple at all, but he's out there. I'm laughing because he mows his lawn every day since they've had the baby. Literally, we laugh. He's been outside every single day mowing the lawn.
Like, is that his break?
I guess. I'm like, brother, come on, man. But I remember exactly what that's like to have a newborn baby, and they're young, and so I don't know him. I don't know him at all. His name's Adam. That's all I know. I don't know their story, but I know what it's like to have a newborn baby. Yeah. And so I went over there and congratulated him one time when he was mowing, and we brought him a gift card. We gave him a $50 gift card to go grab some food, and that's all we did. And but I know what it's like. I had empathy on that situation, and I'm not, I see probably his mom and her mom coming in and out. Like, I'm not going to go over there and hold the baby. I'm not going to go help feed the baby.
They probably don't want you to do that.
They don't want me to do that. No way. I'm not going to go stay up all night with the baby or pay their hospital bills. Yeah. Like, I'm not going to do any of that. But I can give them a gift card, and they can have a free meal. And it's one less meal to be overwhelmed with in the moment of a newborn. And
I love that image you just gave there of like crossing the street.
Yeah.
It's like you see it, and we all have neighbors in some way and or whatever form, and it's like we see it, but they're just over there.
Yeah.
And just that, and it costs you something.
Yeah.
Like compassion also costs us. Like whether it's just your time, whether it's money for this day, it's $50. Like it cost you something, but then to walk across the street, like cross the street, and even if you didn't have a gift card, just go over and say congratulations. Like this recognition, this personal recognition of that, like that to me is what's powerful. Right. And it reminds us that, like I just said, like we're not alone, but it just reminds us like we are as humans, as in my opinion, like the creation of God, like we are one, like we are truly part of God's family. Like he wants us to be a part of his family. And when we do that, it reminds us like we are in this together. Yeah. And we can point each other back to the truth. And I love, like, we talk about Jesus being compassionate because God was compassionate. Right. Like that. And that's what, you told us, like the very first definition of like, okay, God, but really, who are you? Like, why are you? Like, what are you going to do? What's your character? Who should I be following? What should it look like? Like one of those main descriptions, the first one is that he was a God of compassion. Mm-hmm. And living that out is the best example. It's the best way, I think, of showing what the kingdom of God looks like.
It is what God intended, is for him to be shown through his people. We're called, Ephesians 3:10 says we're to be imitators of God, imitators of Christ. Colossians 3:17 says we're to be representatives. Those verses are wrong. I'm just making them up. Someplace in Ephesians, someplace in Colossians. Says we're supposed to be representatives of Christ. It's like that is the main way God shows his love, is through the acts of his people. Yeah. And so that's our calling on our lives. So I don't know, you brought up an interesting question before the show I'd love to know the answer to. Just, you asked, what is the greatest way somebody has shown compassion to you? And I'd love to hear your answer on that.
Yeah, so it reminds me, like, I love all the stories we're talking about compassion, and like we said, Denton SpiderMan, like that's a big thing, but like the first thing that came to my mind was something so small. And when I was 17, I was kicked out of my parents' house, and I did not have a phone or a car. And I was living with some friends, and I really just did not have any way to contact people or explain the situation that had happened, but there was a few of my close people that knew what had happened, and my friend's dad drove up to my work in the middle of the day, and he came in and he handed me a flip phone. And it was just this, he was like, I know that you don't have anything right now, and like this is nothing special. This was not the new iPhone or whatever. It didn't even have anybody's contact in it, but it like made such a big difference because I was at a place of like truly feeling like I had nothing. And at our point in history, like not having a cell phone feels debilitating. Like how am I supposed to contact anybody about anything? And like something small, or if I did need help, like what was I gonna do? And I don't know, even the fact that it was just this like simple flip phone, like that's how I know that it was from a place of compassion, because it wasn't like, oh, I have all this money in the world, so here's an extra phone, like whatever, this costs me nothing. It's like, this is like, you're desperate for something, and I'm here to meet that need in the most simple, basic way possible. And it was amazing. They ended up doing many more things for me after that, but that was like this first step, and it was just really sweet, really sweet.
What about you?
Oh my goodness.
I know, I'm sitting here racking my brain.
You would ask me that. What about you, Chase?
I had to jump in.
Go ahead. What
So
about you?
So what about you?
I was so engaged with Montana's story
Yeah, sure,
that I
sure.
was not
It
thinking.
was a good story.
It was a
17,
good
that happened
story.
when you're 17?
Yeah.
And a year later, you're still talking
Oh
about
my
it.
gosh.
Nice.
Nice.
Greatest act of compassion for me. I don't know if mine is ever, when I think about that, I don't ever think about somebody giving me something materialistic, which people have before. Someone actually gave me a phone a couple years ago because my phone broke, and it just was a sweet act of compassion. I always think about people giving me a chance in life
That's good.
and just believing in me and being willing to give me an opportunity to succeed when nobody else would. And those are probably the sweetest moments of compassion people have given me, is not even something or money or anything like that. It's just a chance, like an
good.
opportunity.
Wow.
And that's been the most life-changing acts of compassion for me.
Like Chase inviting you to come on Science
Yeah,
Live.
like
Yeah,
Chase,
there you go.
Just like
exactly,
that.
exactly,
best. Here you
life-changing.
go.
What about you, Chase?
Yeah, what about you, Chase?
Yeah, I would say,
And that's a wrap.
and thanks for joining. No, because yeah, like you said, like I've been blessed with things. Financially, people have helped us in times of need. I almost think like you kind of talk about giving you chance and kind of and that's like compassion and believing the best for you. Like for me, it's probably even just like relationally, like position in my life, like people showing compassion and saying like, I see this gap, I see this thing missing, or I see a voice missing, and being willing to say like, I want to be that voice. Like I want to put my arm around you. I want to take you under my wing. In the church world, we would almost call it shepherding, which is kind of obviously what we do as pastors, but really like shepherding and like personally watching out and watching your back and protecting you. Like that to me is probably the greatest compassion. And we all need that. But, for me personally, it was just like with our family and the struggles we've had, like having someone who's like, you're not going to do this alone, was huge. And it did. It's like, okay, like that is what Jesus looks like, is the good shepherd. It's like, that's not just a thing on my grandma's doily. Like, it's like, no, like he really is. Like he is that to us, and we can be that to other people. Yeah. We can help protect and care for other people in that way.
Which that just proves our point that compassion can look a lot of different ways.
Yeah, I love that.
But it always starts with somebody being willing to step out and take action.
Yep, that's great. Well, thank you for joining us, and we want to encourage you, like, even this question, how is someone showing you compassion? But then, like, part two, think about how can I show compassion to someone else? Even today, even as I listen to this, what's something I can do right now? Who can I reach out to? Who can I help? Who can I encourage? Let's show compassion together. I think that'd be good. I want to encourage you as well. Subscribe, share this with someone, and like you said, the more that we all do this, like the more that the world's taken care of. It doesn't all fall on one person, on you, on me, on all of us. Like we all get to share that together. And so show some compassion. Share this episode with someone to encourage them. And we will see you guys next time here on Signs of Life.